The Goat House is back with the NFL players that are under the most pressure in 2025, and we'll explain why. We have some obvious ones on here, but some that are a little outside the box, and I can't wait to break down why they made the video. Let's get the most obvious one out of the way. First, Trevor Lawrence. We do have quite a few quarterbacks in this video, but not all quarterbacks. But Trevor Lawrence of the Jags, I mean, he was a generational-like quarterback prospect. Can't miss, zero bust potential. This was going to be a star quarterback, and I mean, he showed flashes early, still shows flashes, but he's had some injury issues, especially last year, and he's been underwhelming. He's been a little inconsistent, even though he still has those flashes. So, I mean, not only does he need to prove something, not only does he just need to play better and more consistent, but, I mean, this is a big season for him. For multiple. First, not only does he need to stay healthy, because if he doesn't stay healthy this year, the Jags might go, can we fully trust this guy? We want to be better, and if a quarterback's not out there, we can't do that. So do we start looking for another quarterback? Does Liam Cohen say that, who's got the quarterback background? He might. So there's a lot of pressure for him to stay healthy, but there's also pressure for him to play better, because we know deep down, I've seen it, he has crazy talent inside him. He does, but he needs to show it more and more. And then look at Liam Cohen, his background, playing quarterback, coaching quarterback. He's got the most out of many quarterbacks. And then you look at last year, Baker Mayfield had his best year of his career. So there's a lot of expectations where that's kind of comes with Liam Cohen, like quarterback guru. He's going to get the most out of the quarterback. And if Lawrence doesn't play better, more consistent, it's not going to look great. It's not going to look good. So two things: stay healthy, play better. A lot of pressure on Trevor Lawrence this year. Caleb Williams, the Bears' second-year quarterback who possibly has star potential. And it's not really like me to put just young, like super young guys, second-year guys in a video like this. But Caleb Williams, I think for obvious reasons, several reasons, has pressure this year. And number one, I mean, he was super hyped number one overall pick, super hype prospect. Some may say generational, unique, flashy ability, can't miss type prospect. So typically when you have those guys like Trevor Lawrence, they can't miss. Like, they got to be that guy in fairly early on. But you bring in Ben Johnson, who, I mean, that was the perfect hire. Everyone knew it. They got their guy. The Bears finally got the coach they wanted. And look what he did with Jared Goff. Jared Goff was kind of like a laughing stock type. Maybe that's a little bit of exaggeration, but people ripped Jared Goff. He was trending down, then boom, he made him into a top 10 quarterback. If you don't think top 10, then very close. And what he did with that Lions offense. So Ben Johnson's going to come in and do his thing. So if Caleb Williams isn't playing well, that's a problem, because he's supposed to be playing well with that. So it kind of puts a little pressure for him to play very well on what should be a very good offensive system. Another thing, to me, Ben Johnson comes in, he's going to want to win right away. I don't think he's a guy that's, he's used to winning with the Detroit Lions, like instantly, the second he was there coaching that offense. So he wants to win right away. If Caleb Williams I don't see this scenario, but if Caleb Williams is for some reason struggling or not the guy Ben Johnson, wants in there, because his offense was all about, getting the ball out quick read. So he's got to get better in that category. If Ben Johnson decides that this guy might not be able to do that, again, not my prediction, but this guy might not be able to do that, I don't think Ben Johnson's going to hesitate to look for another quarterback. So I don't think it's going to be this long. I don't think it's going to take long for Caleb Williams to get good, but if for some reason he doesn't, I don't think he's going to have a lot of chances. I just don't get that feeling from Ben Johnson. So a little bit of pressure to get going now. And Ben Johnson, hear him talk about, to the media, how they're talking to Caleb Williams, working on some things other than football. Not showing his frustration as much with the team or the situation, specifically like when he lays on the ground, get up, you're the leader of this team. So I love that he went and told him that. So if he continues to do things like that, like obviously there's some pressure on kind of snapping out of that. Again, not really worried about that. But again, I think there's a lot of pressure to take that next step, because he's got that right offensive coach. If people want Ben Johnson there, if for some reason Williams isn't playing super well, they're gonna blame it on him. Now they're finally gonna put on the quarterback, because can't be that Ben Johnson guy, right? So a lot of pressure to step it up this year. Here's a unique one. J.J. McCarthy, the Vikings quarterback. And I know a lot of people are going to go, McCarthy does not belong in this video. He hasn't even started yet. He's not a rookie, but he's essentially a rookie. Like he wasn't even out there last year because he was injured. So how does he have a ton of pressure? How does he have a lot to prove for a guy that hasn't started? And I'm going to tell you why. For multiple reasons. I mean, the Vikings loaded up that roster, right? They loaded it up this offseason. You take away the quarterback position, you look at the roster, you could argue this is one of the better, maybe the best roster with the talent they have, how complete it is in football. They kind of took an Eagles route. It's looking somewhat Eagles-like. You can't, even though they really improved their offensive line, you can't really expect it to be Eagles' offensive line. But on paper, this looks like the Vikings' best offensive line since the Brett Favre year. They went to the NFC Championship game. So in the defensive line, you could argue is the best in football. So they loaded up this roster. So for whoever the quarterback, no matter who the quarterback is, there's some pressure. Like if you're not playing well and you're hurting this team, like you're blowing it, really. You're taking away from what this team could do. So McCarthy that would involve McCarthy being like bad. I don't think he's going to be bad. So, but there's some pressure to play at least decent. But then you take it another step further. The Vikings, they kind of offered something to Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, but nothing with like a lot of insurance. Like you're going to be the starter. You're going to be the starter for multiple years. So they, and they could have offered Aaron Rodgers. There was some internal discussions about that, but they did end up going with Sam Howell as a backup, but there was no addition for competition for J.J. McCarthy or a guy that, he for sure will be a pretty decent starter on our team in this offense if McCarthy isn't good or if he's injured. So they're all in with J.J. McCarthy. So that tells me he better be good. He better be damn good with the Super Bowl type roster that they built. If you're insisting on this quarterback right now, I'm not making excuses for him. Like he better be good. And a lot of the fans were the same way. They didn't want anybody that could potentially start or rival or compete with J.J. McCarthy because that's how fans are with the young quarterbacks. They wanted J.J. McCarthy or no one else. I'm saying those fans that were pretty firm and stubborn with that, they're not allowed to make excuses for J.J. McCarthy because with this roster, you're saying he for sure is the guy, so he better be the guy. It's not me saying he's got to be perfect. He can't turn the ball over. Like, no, like he's a young guy. He's got to grow. There's going to be mistakes here and there, but I'm just saying for all what happened this offseason with the Vikings built and them just insisting on him going with them, he better be pretty good. So this is a very, 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 very rare case where I'm not personally not going to make excuses for a first year starter. Again, not expecting him to be perfect. That's unfair, but I feel like no excuses allowed. He's got to go out there and play to what this team could be because they got a very talented team. So J.J. McCarthy under some pressure as a first-year starter. And, I mean, he has Sam Howell behind him, so you don't want to get replaced either. But I think he's pretty safe to be the starter, and he's going to have to mess up pretty damn big to lose that job. But, again, he's coming off an injury too. So, I mean, if he gets injured, it's all going to blow up in the Vikings' face if something like that happens because you went all in, but quarterback, still a little bit of a question, even though I believe McCarthy could be very good. So, interesting team to watch this year. The Vikings' former quarterback, Sam Darnold, I think a lot of pressure on him just because there's a lot of pressure with him coming out of USC because I wasn't super high on him, but he was known as a borderline elite prospect, going to be a sure thing, and he was bad. I mean, before the Vikings, Sam Darnold was bad. He was a well below average quarterback. Some people may say close to average, generous. He goes to the Vikings. He was pretty damn good. I mean, at the end, in the big games when it mattered, he wasn't good. But he was pretty damn good all year. He did some things I didn't think he was capable of. So now he goes to a new team, and there's a lot of pressure to do similar things, be as good, and you don't have as good of a team around you. So it kind of makes you even more pressure. Like, you got to be the guy. Like, you can't have your hand held. You got to be the guy. And this team drafts Jalen Milroe, surprising to me because a totally different type of quarterback than Sam Darnold. But they're going to see Milroe's athleticism. They're going to be tempted. They're going to be going, oh, That's the weapon that we drafted. I'm dying to put this guy in and use him, let him run around a bit. So, and the way they structured Sam Darnold's contract, not really locked in super long term, obviously. So they might be itching at some point to put Milroe. I don't think it right away. So I think there's a lot of pressure for those multiple reasons on Sam Darnold. Are you just Sam Darnold, or was it Sam Darnold last year, or was it the Vikings? Was it Kevin O'Connell? Was it Justin Jefferson? Can you be you? Can you be that guy that is actually a very solid quarterback? So a lot of pressure on him. We'll see how he performs this year. The Seahawks' former quarterback now, Geno Smith, traded to the Raiders. A lot of pressure on him because the Raiders finally have a quarterback. I mean, the recent years, it's been a big-time struggle, and they would put up fights with him. They haven't been a great team, but they would put up fights with teams, so it kind of always felt like, they need more than a quarterback, but it did kind of feel like if they just had a decent quarterback, they actually could make the playoffs or be something. And he's got a great running game in Ashton Jeanty, a decent offense line, should be better than Seattle's offense line from last year. Obviously, the receivers aren't nearly as good, so that could be the issue. Got star players on defense led by Max Crosby, but a lot of pressure on being that guy because the Raiders just haven't had a quarterback. So you got to come in and play like a decent quarterback. You got to play like a good quarterback. So a little bit of pressure on Geno Smith to kind of, has he played super well outside of Seattle too? Was it a Seattle thing? Is it a Geno Smith thing? So some similarities to Sam Darnold there. And it's funny because Darnold is going to Geno Smith's former team. But some pressure to actually give the Raiders finally a good quarterback. Can he do it? Jets running back Breece Hall makes the list. I mean, for starters, he's on an expiring contract, so he is playing for his value this year. If he plays well, he's going to get a good contract. If he struggles or he's losing snaps, he's not. So that kind of brings some pressure. It almost seems like there's a little bit of doubt with him right now. He was underwhelming last year. I mean, there was, there's a lot of teams or people within the league predicting Breece Hall. I've seen specific quotes from people within the league, like predicting Breece Hall to be the next star running back, the next elite NFL running back. And he didn't show anything, like even though he's solid, he didn't show that last year. So he needs to be a little more consistent and kind of get back on track, even though he's talented. He's a fantastic pass catching back as well. But yeah, this offseason, there was some talk, like he almost seemed like maybe he wants to go elsewhere, or the Jets aren't like in love with him, the new staff that is. So he's got to prove some things this year, and the Jets want to roll with multiple running backs, not really just Breece Hall, not just Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, maybe even more than that. Aaron Glenn coming from the Lions, they mainly use two backs, but it was very, very important to them to have two stud backs. So if Breece Hall is getting outperformed, or like they're going to split carries, but they're going to also more so ride the hot hand within games. So if he kind of feels like a back that kind of needs to get oiled up, kind of get going a little bit too. So it's going to be tough. And if Braylon Allen, for an example, is looking a little bit better than him early in the games, it could decrease Hall's snaps or carries from the planned pregame. So, and that is going to result in a little bit less than what he probably should be getting. And then it's going to result in the value dropping on him in terms of, in terms of the offseason, next contract, which that's coming up next free agency. So he's got to make the most out of his opportunities this year when he's on the field. Another running back, Ramondre Stevenson, the Patriots running back. I mean, right when he came out of Oklahoma, he looked like a promising back for the Patriots. They eventually gave him a pretty decent contract, and he was super underwhelming last year. He had a lot of fumble issues. There was times where the coaches were even saying, we can't trust him fully. We're not even going to start him this week. We're going to limit him. So it was kind of all over the place. So very underwhelming. So that's why he has some pressure to kind of get back on track and just play better in general. Another reason they draft TreVeyon Henderson, Ohio State star running back, and we know he's got some serious talent. And the new staff didn't pick Stevenson; they picked Henderson. So they're going to use him. So a little bit of pressure to not lose he's going to lose some snaps, but not lose a ton of snaps to TreVeyon Henderson. But I think the main reason here, mainly, it's a Mike Vrabel team, right? It's a Mike Vrabel team. Big hire. You go back to the Tennessee Titans Mike Vrabel days, wasn't too long ago. The Titans had some damn good football teams. They were at times the best team in the regular season under Mike Vrabel. It didn't really always work out in the playoffs, but they were a really, really good football team. And why multiple reasons they were really good, right? But what was kind of the main reason? Who was their best player? Like a Derrick Henry, and they just just fed him the ball and just let him go to work. They run the football. And now no one's expecting Stevenson to be Derrick Henry, but it's a physical back that can handle a load, that can take hits. Stevenson's not nowhere near Derrick Henry, but he's a lot more physical, can handle more inside runs than a guy like TreVeyon Henderson. So he's got to be that guy, like for Mike Vrabel. But even more so, those Titans teams, the number one reason I thought, like they pound the football, but they dominated the clock. They dominated the time of possession. They wanted to limit their opponent how much time they had the ball. So it's very important here to run the football for the Patriots and control the clock, grind plays out. So no matter how many snaps that Henderson's coming in and getting, Stevens going to be part of that, and he's going to have to play a lot better than he's been playing, or they're going to find another running back to pair with TreVeyon Henderson. So big year coming up, bounce back year from Ramondre Stevenson. Dalton Kincaid, the Bills' former first-round pick tight end, who's been underwhelming. He had flashes a couple years ago. We're like, okay, this guy might be a weapon for them. Again, he has the flashes here and there. Last year, super underwhelming. I thought he was going to be a lot more productive for them last year, but they continue to add other weapons. But he's still maybe their go-to tight end, and he's just got to catch the ball more consistently. He's got to show up and just get open a little more consistently, maybe like he did at the college level. Just hasn't been able to do that. So it's kind of now or never for him. I think this is the year where the Bills need to see that from him, or they're gonna go out and find another tight end. So a lot of pressure just to live up to expectations, but to live up to the Bills so they don't go replace you this year. But there's pressure just to show up in at the end of games in the big moments. Don't drop the ball. Don't make the big plays. Be trustworthy for your team. So there's on multiple levels there's some pressure on Dalton Kincaid to really finally step up and just be more consistent, not just be a flash guy here and there. Another tight end and an obvious one here with Kyle Pitts, who was an elite prospect out of Florida, and he has not lived up to that hype, nowhere near it. Needs to catch the ball a lot more consistently. He has games where he had multiple drops. He had Michael Penix had an interception near the goal line that Pitts just gave it to the defender, basically. I remember specifically, there's been multiple games, but the Vikings game was looking like a shootout, and they were going to be in it. He had a brutal drop or two in a brutal situation, and the Vikings ended up pulling away. So you just can't have that happen. When you're not like a true inline tight end, you're this like big body target that can get open, that's supposed to be able to make these flashy plays as like a tight end receiver hybrid. You better freaking catch the ball. Like tight ends in general, like typically the ones that don't catch the ball consistently don't really play because you're not throwing to them an insane amount compared to the receivers. Well, some teams are. But when you do that, you better catch the ball. So he's got to do a much better job doing that. It was a new staff last year. I don't know if they were super thrilled with Pitts. There's been some trade talks. I don't know if they actually trade him, and he's on an expiring contract as well. So he's kind of playing for his future value, which is decreasing. It feels like every game he's playing right now, I keep thinking he's going to break out. So now he's got Michael Penix. Can he play a little bit better with him, like kind of gaining chemistry with him as Penix grows? Maybe. Penix throws the ball very, very hard. He puts the ball, a lot more velocity on the ball than Kirk Cousins, so maybe it's a little trickier to catch, but it's now or never. Well, it's probably not now or never because somebody's probably going to sign him in free agency next year thinking like, all right, maybe we can get him to be the Kyle Pitts, but it's close to now or never. Like he's got to play much better this year. Everybody knows that. I don't need to keep explaining what Kyle Pitts is. Some pressure on him this year. Kwity Paye, edge rusher of the Indianapolis Colts, former first-round pick. Been a little underwhelming so far, but decent. I mean, for starters, he's on an expiring deal, so there's some pressure when it comes to that. You got to earn money this year, earn your next contract. But the main reason he's on this video, like why is he under a lot of pressure? Look at the Colts edge rush group. Well, first they bring in a new coordinator, Lou Anarumo, so he's going to new mind in there. He's going to pick the best defensive ends and play those guys the most. But look at last year. It was Abukum got injured. It was Paye and Latu. Latu was their big first-round pick from last year. Of course, they're going to play him plenty this year. Abukum comes back. They have Paye. I know Adengbo's gone, but they draft JT Tuimoloau, which I was a big fan of. To me, he's pro-ready, plug-and-play, every down type guy because he's just as good against the run as he is getting after the quarterback. He can play in any scenario. He can drop in coverage. So I think he has a shot to be their best pass rusher if he gets the opportunity. So why a lot of pressure for Kwity Paye? I mean, there's a lot of pressure to stay on the field and get the appropriate snaps because if two other guys, he's still going to play, but if two other guys out of those four play or are looking better, they're going to play more. It's going to result in his snaps going down a little bit, even though he's still going to get them. And that results in maybe not as good of a contract as he can get in free agency, whether it's from the Colts or another team last year. So he, right out the gate in practice, preseason, week 1, week 2, he's got to be playing better than his teammates to get those appropriate snaps. So big season coming up for Kwity Paye. And I said we had some outside the box ones here that, some players that have some pressure on them, believe it or not. Jack Campbell, linebacker of Detroit Lions, just a few years ago was a surprising, I'd say, first-round pick. So, it's really not why he's on the video. There's a little bit of pressure to kind of live up to that hype. It was, if you draft the linebacker in the first round, non-premium position, you better be damn good. So that's some of it. Could be a little more consistent. He's shown some flashes, could be a little better. I think he has upside in coverage as a blitzer even. He's a decent football player. So that's not the main reason he's on in this video. But go back. When they draft him in the first round, you draft a linebacker in the first round, you're going, they got a plan for him. Like, he's got to be starting. It's got to be, because teams these days, they really go 2 off-ball linebackers, and the third one is used, gets a decent amount of snaps, but more of a rotation, or the somewhat rare times you use 3 linebackers. So you figure they're driving in the first round right away. It's going to be Anzalone and Jack Campbell, and then Derek Barnes is going to be that third guy. But in the first year, it was Campbell played, but it was Anzalone and Derek Barnes with the main starter, like the 2 linebacker 95% plus snaps, and then Campbell was kind of the next guy when they want 3 linebackers in there, or if he's rotating in for one of those guys that needs a breather, he was that guy. And you go, not perfectly ideal, but he's a rookie, so next year he's got to be the guy, right? So that was last year, and week 1 it is Anzalone and Derek Barnes out there, and Campbell's kind of that third guy. So it's like, all right, they still like Derek Barnes, and then boom, Derek Barnes gets injured, Campbell gets in there. Anzalone was dealing with some stuff as well. Lions had a lot of injuries on defense, but Campbell was in there then, mainly because Barnes went down. And then Campbell's showing some flashes. He's showing a little bit of growth. You still want him to reach more of that potential. But now you're going, I'm going, you're going, like, all right, going forward, it's got to be Anzalone and Campbell, and then, even when Derek Barnes comes back, and then this offseason hits, and then boom, they give Derek Barnes a pretty decent contract. Like, that contract is not super rich, but it's one where this is not really a rotation guy at that position. It might be, he's going to play a lot of snaps, so what are they going to do going into the week 1 this year? Are they once again going to be going, and I do think the eventual plan is Campbell to kind of be Anzalone, because Anzalone's not going to be around for much longer. And so it's probably going to be Campbell and Derek Barnes long term. But who's going to get the 2 most snaps out of the 2 linebackers? And 3 guys are going to get a decent amount of snaps, right? But why he's on this video? Earn that. Be one of the best linebackers on your team. He should be the best linebacker on his team, and earn those snaps, not just rotation snaps, and earn maybe that Anzalone spot for the future, which is very important in that defense. So it's Campbell and Barnes of the future. So I actually think there is some pressure on Jack Campbell to kind of take that next up and prove something this year. Another one that's a little outside the box here, thinking Jaden Hicks, the safety of the Chiefs, young safety from Washington State, definitely showed some flashes. He logged a pretty decent amount of snaps last year for a young safety, but there's some pressure on him because Justin Reid was a lot more impactful, a lot more important to that Chiefs defense than people realize. They are so good with secondary defensive backs, I should say, in general, finding them, developing them, and having them play in that Spagnuolo defense, having them playing better than you think they would be. So I'm confident with the Chiefs for sure. But Justin Reid was so important to that defense in coverage, but in run support as well. He was so good at getting downhill and making a one-on-one tackle, sure thing tackler, but really solid in coverage as well. So that's a guy they can miss, and Hicks is filling that role. They let him go. They're confident with Hicks. Reed didn't even get paid a ton of money, on a decent amount, but they're confident with Jaden Hicks. I'm confident with him as well. I love the way the Chiefs develop these types of guys, but it's going to be him and Cook, but that's some big shoes to fill. So I kind of wanted to find a sneaky one, a guy that had some, big shoes to fill. And then maybe people probably don't realize, again, how good Justin Reid was for the Chiefs. So I think Hicks is up for it. I don't think it's fair to expect him to be as consistent as Reid was right away. Hicks can fly downhill and make a hit, but he'll whiff on some tackles as well. And it's a team that's contending for a Super Bowl. So could it come down to just missing Justin Reid a little bit, even if the new guy, Hicks, is good? could have come down to that. So some shoes to fill there for Jaden Hicks. How about Broncos' new safety, Talanoa Hufanga, who was former All-Pro from the 49ers. It was a few years ago. And this is kind of an obvious one. He has pressure on multiple levels. He has to finally stay fully healthy, so there's pressure on him. Because if he gets hurt again, I mean, the Broncos signed him a multi-year deal, so it's a little risky for them. But if he gets hurt again, everyone on the planet, I think already a lot of people are almost like a little worried, like, can he stay healthy? But if he gets hurt again this year, everyone's like, no one's going to give him a shot. Like, no one's going to be confident with him staying healthy. So there's a lot of pressure to stay healthy, help the Broncos out because they signed him to do that. You know, they seem to be pretty confident taking that risk. And he has to kind of get back on track to where he was playing, too, because he had an unreal season, then had some injuries, and then we have seen him play. Just hasn't really felt nearly as good, even though he's been solid. And the 49ers, it felt like around the time that, you know, he was All-Pro, he was that good. It felt like that 49ers defense was just, no matter who they had in there, they're going to get the most out of him. So is it that situation? So can he be as good elsewhere? Will he get back on track? Will he stay healthy? So a lot of pressure in multiple different. It's pressure for the Broncos too, because they took a risk in signing him. And you look at the Broncos towards the end of last year, down the stretch last year. I mean, their defense was really good throughout the whole year. I think the run defense held up all year, but the pass defense down the stretch, like the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, I guess, as you can conclude the playoff game, they were one of the worst pass defenses. I don't think they're one of the worst pass defense, but statistically, in what I watched, and everybody played different teams. You know, they had to play the Bills in the playoffs, but down the last 4 weeks, I want to say, 4 games, they were statistically one of the worst pass defenses in football. I think Riley Moss was missing for a little bit. That's solid player, but that shouldn't really do the trick. So, and I felt like, and they had Surtain at corner, I felt like it was the safety position. Brandon Jones played pretty well for them, but he's more of a downhill underneath type guy. He can do more than that, don't get me wrong, but that's where he makes his money. So it's more of the middle of the field and the back end on why they were struggling. So they're going to bring in a playmaker, another guy that can play back end, can get downhill. So there's got to be some expectations from the Broncos end. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of risk here. So it's actually a big one in this video. The more I'm talking, so big pressure here for Hufanga. Can he get back on track? Can he stay healthy? But that'll do it for this one. This is a lot of fun. I had to put the obvious ones in there, but then I was kind of thinking outside the box. You can keep listing players. There's more and more players you can make the argument for belong in an exercise like this. So I want to see you guys in the comments. Comment with 1, 2, or 3, however many. Think of an outside the box one. Think of like a wild card one here. List them. Tell me why in the comments. That'll be a lot of fun to see and interact with everyone. Everyone can interact with each other. So can't wait to see those. But that'll do it for this one. We got lots of content rolling out still. Check it out. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.